everyone. Welcome to the Hidden Prospects podcast. We're here with Dimitar. Dimitar is a very successful Bulgarian who achieved great feats in Bulgaria in medicine. And now he's abroad and he started multiple companies with Bulgaria, and he's focused a lot in medicine and improving medicine in Bulgaria. Dimitar, we thank you for joining us and welcome.
Thank you. My pleasure to join this interesting project, and I am really hoping to be contributive in a way.
Thank you. Thank you. So if you could tell us just a little bit about yourself, about your career and how you began in Bulgaria, your studies and why you chose to go into the medical field, and your medical experience in Bulgaria, then transitioning out into Austria. Just a quick little discussion about yourself.
Yes, I'm born in 1962, and in fact, everybody in my family was a physician. My father, my mother, the brother of my mother, the three sisters of my father. So this was a destiny to become a physician. Although in communist time, physicians in Bulgaria were not paid well first, and also they have not been respected like now. To be a physician was more, let's say, a gift or a dedication and not a profession, because my father and my mother have been working heavily, and they were not able even to buy a car. My father was waiting 17 years to be able to buy a car. Anyway, I decided to go for medicine, and after I graduated the German language school and been 2 years in the army, I started my study in 1982, and 1988 I graduated with excellent results. So I was delegated to Târgoviște. Târgoviște is and was at that time a small city in Bulgaria, in northern part of Bulgaria, with 60% Muslim population. And actually, this was my first personal encounter with the reality, to be a doctor, and to be a doctor in a society where the people are generally very poor. But it was a very nice experience there. I have been there for 2 years. After that, I came back to Sofia, joined a very famous clinic where I have been working for 15 years, until I decided to go for a private business. Meanwhile, I established my first company long time before the word startup was known. My first company was inaugurated in 1995. This was a company for clinical trials, which was at that time a not regulated business in Europe and even less regulated in Bulgaria. So it was like a Klondike. The clinical trials at that time served several purposes, but the most important and most convincing purpose for me was that via clinical trials, we have been able to deliver high quality medicine to Bulgaria, to the Bulgarian population. I can give you an example. We did a huge trial with erythropoietin, biosimilar erythropoietin in Bulgaria, and it was serving perfectly the needs of the country, because at that time Bulgaria was able to afford the erythropoietin dosage for only 49% of the people who need it, and the other 51 have been treated without erythropoietin, and they have been dying very soon. So we were able to import the erythropoietin for the clinical trials for the other 50%, and they were lucky to be treated for 3 or 4 years. So this was, besides earning money, was also an excellent social mission. In 2004, I got twins, 2 girls, and we moved to Vienna with my family, where I have never been able to find a proper job, due to various reasons. The first reason was that when we moved in 2006, Bulgaria was not part of the EU, so there was no chance to get a proper job at that time. And in 2007, when Bulgaria became the member of the EU, there were 6 years of restrictions for Bulgarians to get the right to apply free for jobs. So we were restricted. And Austria has been employing also only the so-called crucial workers, so workers who have been more needed for the economy than local people. This was mainly related to languages and some special skills. But it's also a good direction in my life, because probably if I have taken the job of a physician in Austria, my career would have been developing in a completely different direction. Anyway, when I realized that I cannot get a job in Austria, I started to go in more business direction in Bulgaria. I exited from the company doing clinical trials. Meanwhile, we had a very successful project for a cord blood stem cell bank, which we established with one of my colleagues from the hospital in 2007, and we sold in 2011 extremely successfully. And with the money from both exits, I was able to found roughly 10 companies who are mainly in the life sciences and biotech ecosystem in Bulgaria. I made 2 successful exits after that, the last in this year. And now I'm looking to develop digital health, 2 digital health companies where I'm shareholder. That's my career in, let's say, 5 minutes.
Yep. Very interesting career and very deep career. But going back to your time in Bulgaria, you mentioned in Sofia that you were a gynecologist. Do you remember? You told me. How do you feel that experience helped you grow into the business? Do you feel like that helped you gain more knowledge? How do you feel about that stage in your career?
Well, what I can say is that gynecology, not but obstetrics, which is a substantial part of this profession, gave me a lot of experience and also enabled me to take fast decisions, because in obstetrics, when you are doing a delivery, you have to take a decision, and you have to take the right decision within seconds or within minutes. You cannot elaborate, make let's say 1-year conversations about this and that. You have to decide now in 9 o'clock 8 minutes Bulgarian time, latest until 9 o'clock 10. So because after that the baby is dead. And I have taken a lot of such decisions, because I think that I have between 4,000 and 5,000 deliveries in my career. So the ability to take a decision fast was actually the most important part of my character, which has been developed during my profession. And also the second very important lesson from obstetrics is that I learned to be responsible. So in obstetrics, if you have a delivery, you cannot just say my shift is over, bye-bye. You can do this, of course, but there is no responsibility and there is no ownership towards your patient. So I have never been leaving patients without bringing the delivery until the end. And that's what I learned also in my life, that any project which I start, if I start a project, I have to bring it until the end. And I have to bring it until the end successfully, and not with a default or with a bankruptcy, or I have to bring it until the end. And that's the second most important lesson from the profession.
While working deliveries, did you build emotional connections with the mothers and with the families, or did you view it more as work? Like, I have 10 deliveries today, I just want to get them done.
That's an excellent question. Actually, if you are about to build 4,000 or 5,000 emotional connections with your patients, you will lose your emotionality. I have to say that if you have 10 deliveries per day, which happen from time to time, you cannot be emotionally related with everybody. But there are some deliveries which you remember for whole your life, and those are the deliveries of your relatives, the very successful deliveries, and of course the not successful deliveries, which ended up with disease for the baby or a disease for the mother. So of course everybody has malpractice problems in his career. I don't know a physician who was never 100% successful. Probably in psychiatry, where you cannot measure the outcome effectively, but in obstetrics, the outcome counts if you have a healthy mother and a healthy child. That's it. So if there is something which is in between, in a way, you are not successful. And probably also this is the reason why I never was tempted to join the assisted reproduction business in obstetrics and gynecology, because the success rate there is low. You have a take-home baby rate of 30–40%, no more. But answering your questions, yes, I have been able to have a very emotional relationship with my patients, but not with everyone. And also, and this is also emotional relationships in bilateral. So if you have a patient who is not who is stressed, afraid of delivery, or in a way reluctant to make an emotional bridge with the physician, you cannot do it by force.
Yeah.
Yep. And then going into your time in Austria, do you feel like the negative of not being able to continue your career there turned out to be a positive? How do you feel about that?
Yes, first of all, Austria is a very good country, but for the people who are born here and for the people who became native fast, like my children, for example, who have been born in Bulgaria, but they came here with 18 months and they are completely integrated in the society. But for people like me and my wife, Austria was never able to become a mother, in a way, home country. So you can be successful in Austria, you can be extremely successful in Austria, but success in Austria is perceived in a different way. And successful foreigners are also perceived in a different way. So I can say that I'm happy that I was never able to be fully integrated in the society, because probably I would have a more calm life, but not the opportunities which I used in Bulgaria, because in Austria every opportunity is taken. It's a mature society with a lot of funding options, with a lot of support from the government, so every opportunity is taken. In Bulgaria you have millions of opportunities and only 1% of the opportunities are taken, and from this 1% of the taken opportunity, 50% are not taken properly. So you can develop yourself much faster in the business terms in Bulgaria than in Austria. There is no doubt in this.
I definitely agree. How do you feel about that perception of you as an immigrant? Because I was growing up in America, similar experience. Me and my brother, we were young when we got there, so we were more accustomed to people and we fit in. But my parents always had that struggle of getting labeled and mistreated because of their names, because of their accents. Do you feel the same way?
Actually, yes. And also the typical question for an Austrian is, how comes that you're so successful? So there is an envy in the society for successful people, and this envy is extremely strong if the successful person is coming from another country, from Bulgaria, for example, which is generally perceived in Austria as a successful country. So if you come here and if you are successful in your country, the majority of the Austrians says how comes, and they presume that you are a criminal. That's the first. And even if you say that you are a physician, that you have, they still think that you do some dirty tricks in Bulgaria. And for me, this was really a very strange, attitude. But at the end, I understood what's the problem, because in Austria, you cannot be successful. First of all the opportunities are taken. The second fact is that the society is limiting the people who want to be successful with putting a lot of restrictions, with putting a lot of social privileges for workers and social disadvantages for entrepreneurs and investors. So in Austria, you are happy if you are an employee, but you are not happy if you are an investor or a founder of a company.
I see. How do you feel like that's different in Bulgaria? Do you feel like in Bulgaria, you said there's more opportunity? How could somebody take that opportunity in Bulgaria? A young Bulgarian that's living abroad, or a Bulgarian that's trying to work in Bulgaria?
Well, Bulgaria is a country of opportunities, but you have really to be tough in order to use this opportunity on 100%. There are few facts proving that there are opportunities, because the society in Bulgaria is much less developed than the society in Austria, and the country is less developed. So, for example, in healthcare, if you go not on the standard way is to make a medical center, a hospital, but we have 450 hospitals in Bulgaria, much more than in Austria. But if you do something, for example, in health tech, or if you do something in digital health, you will be successful, because Bulgaria is lacking such developments. But on the other hand, funding in Bulgaria is difficult. Banks are not positive heroes in terms of business development. On the contrary, they try to capture part of your profits in an extremely unfair way. And also the government and the society, the state, they don't support entrepreneurship on a small scale. And also, of course, there is the question of corruption in Bulgaria, which is massive. There is corruption in every country, also in Austria, but it's not on such basic level like in Bulgaria. For example, if you apply for funding in Austria, in a smaller city, because you can apply for funding everywhere, nobody in the municipality will ask you what percentage of this funding I will get. Or what's for me? This is the typical Bulgarian question, what's for me? They don't ask this. And you cannot also bribe a policeman on the street if you are fined with high speed. That's impossible. So this is corruption, the less developed society, and the lack of proper funding are the biggest obstacles for entrepreneurs in Bulgaria. But if you are tough enough, if you have a strong wish to achieve something and you are focused, you will be successful, definitely. Of course, successful with the size of Bulgaria, because if you want to do something scalable worldwide, then you definitely need to go outside of Bulgaria, let's say one year after you started your business.
What about your businesses that are in Bulgaria? Are you trying to scale, or do you want to keep them within Bulgaria?
For my traditional business, you cannot scale, for example, a medical center in Sofia, outside of Sofia, and not to speak about outside of Bulgaria, because that's not possible. But for the digital health investments, which I'm doing now, the scalability is the only way to go out, because I am owner of 20% of a company in Bulgaria, which has 90% of market share for a digital health service, and they cannot afford even to order a coffee. I mean, they cannot come to break even in Bulgaria, because the buying power of the Bulgarians is very small.
Yep, I agree. What do you feel is like the future of medicine, let's say worldwide on one side, and then the future of medicine in Bulgaria? Do you think it's going to be more digital, and we're going to be focusing on more digital health in the next 10, 15 years?
Actually, the disaster of COVID has another side, and the other side is that there are a lot of developments related to COVID, and also a lot of investments in biotech and healthcare related to COVID. Definitely the future of medicine is digital, and there will be medical professions who will die out, because there will be no need. For example, I think that psychiatrists will soon be replaced by artificial intelligence and digital tools, because a psychiatrist does not need to have some skills with the hands. It will be difficult to replace surgeons or obstetricians with robots, but psychiatrists, neurologists, psychologists, nutritionists, they will be replaced by digital gadgets, so to say. And also, I think that the technologies who have been used for COVID vaccines will be able to penetrate also oncology. And soon we can expect vaccines for certain tumors, which will be, I think, very successful.
For certain cancer tumors that would decrease them or eliminate them?
If not eliminate at all, keep them under control. So the patient is never absolutely healthy, but also not dies. Like in AIDS, you have a very successful pill, or some very successful pills which block the disease, but do not eradicate.
Yeah, can stop it from growing. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. So in Bulgaria, I've noticed being here that some medical systems and medical professionals, I think there's very good professionals, but the facilities are lacking. Um, and you mentioned that on our call earlier. How do you feel?
Well, I see the
Yeah.
things in a different way because there were a lot of investments in healthcare facilities, and you have very nice hospitals, of course, corresponding to the Bulgarian healthcare system and to the buying power of the society. But now there are nice hospitals, and also the physicians are very well paid. So if you are a smart doctor today in Bulgaria, you will never be poor. That's impossible. But the problem is that for the majority of the physicians, the job, the motivation was changed. Our motivation was to treat people, and the motivation of the young society now is to earn money. I think that this is a tendency all around the world, that medicine is becoming more a business than, let's say, gift or talent. And this reflects in the general attitude of medicine worldwide. It's more profit oriented than it should be.
I see. And I'm assuming when you first went into medicine, it was to treat people and for the good of the people. That was your goal.
That was the sentiment when I started to think about studying medicine, and when I studied medicine. Of course, the commercial part of our profession was always there, because you cannot be a good doctor if you cannot afford a milk for your child. Yep. But this should not be being replaced today with the only focus on earning. That's, I think, destructive for the medicine. And this is why I think that artificial intelligence and computerized system will replace physicians, because they are, first, much more easy to be controlled. Second, they can work 24/7. And third, they will not be corrupted if they are programmed in a good way. And I think that the most important part of this transition to digital health and to digital tools and to artificial intelligence will be the control of the motivation of the robots who will be treating us, that they are not so commercial, but focused mostly to help people get better.
Yeah, and I know one thing is a lot of people are hesitant about working with like artificial intelligence. Like if you're online and there's an AI chat, you'd want to talk to somebody human. How do you feel like that people will get past that and people will adjust to that?
Well, that's true, but that's true for my generation. I'm sure that the generation of my children who are 17 will prefer to talk to a machine and not to people, because I see them, they are not doing phone calls. They are only chatting. They don't look even at TV. They have their own tools for looking movie. So, and also you would be happy to speak to somebody, but if this somebody is available, because I think that when the artificial intelligence and the computerized system penetrate medicine, a lot of physicians will not be interested anymore. This will be like taxi drivers. Taxi drivers is a profession which will be extincted when autonomous cars are there. So,
yep, I agree. And then going back to your career, starting off in Bulgaria and moving late into Bulgaria, what's like the biggest obstacle or something that you look back and you regret that you'd want to change? Do you have anything of yes. Such?
When I started doing business in Bulgaria, there was virtually no access to money for doing business, because the right principle is that you do business not with your money. You do business with the money of banks, of investors, and so on. And when we started, banks or there were no VCs, so we had to do it with our own money and risking a lot. The risk was too high. That's what I think. And also, I think that especially in clinical trials, like in banking, for example, the regulations are about to suffocate the philosophy. And also in clinical trials, physicians are not needed anymore, because what the physicians are doing, they are just marking what's done and what's not done. This can be done also by a machine. But the too much regulations, too much restrictions are suffocating this business and directing it in another role.
I see.
And
I see.
moving forward with healthcare, do you believe public or private healthcare would be more predominant in the future?
Well, I see what happens in Austria and I see what happens in Bulgaria. The pure public healthcare will remain only for poor people because the public pillar cannot adopt all innovations. It's impossible. Innovations are getting more and more, they are getting more and more expensive and more complicated. So there will be a healthy mix between public and private funding of the healthcare. And the more you earn, the more you can afford. Unfortunately, the tendency in the next 10 or 20 years will be in the direction that rich people will get much better healthcare than poor people. That's the reality. All around the world, not only in Bulgaria, not only in Austria, not only in the United States, all around the world. And that's the direction now. What will be in 20 years, I don't know. If in a way the social systems in the world are getting more and more rich via different tools, then probably the trends towards public healthcare will be again there, like it was in the last 40 years in Europe. But Austria, who has a very good social system now, has 3 different pillars of healthcare. The first is the public, and the only public remains just for poor people. Then you have the private, where you pay a private insurance monthly or annually, and you get co-funded, but the procedure is a bit slow. So if you go to a private doctor, you pay cash, then you send first to the public. In 1 month, you get 20% reimbursement, then you submit to the private, and in another 1 month, you get the other reimbursement. So you wait 2.5 months roughly to get reimbursed the money you have, what you have paid cash. And the third pillar is for people who are foreigners, who are not socially secured or who are not interested to have, they just pay cash. And they're always on top. I mean, if you go to a lab and you would like to pay cash, and do not expect 1 or 2 invoices, they take you first. That's it.
Yep, I feel like it's the same in Bulgaria as well. If you go out, pay cash, you'll get attention immediately.
Bulgaria, there is no private insurance, or if there is a private insurance, it has a very small stake, because I think that the payments coming from the private health insurance funds are less than 5% contribution for the entire budget of the healthcare system. But 50% are out of the pocket, which are never reimbursed, never. So 50% of the healthcare in Bulgaria is supported by out-of-pocket payments, who do not officialize after that.
Do you feel like that needs to be changed, or do you think that's...
Of course. This needs to be changed. And the best way for change is to regulate better the private insurance. Because if you have a private insurance and the private insurance works like in Austria or like in Germany, there will be no out-of-pocket payments. The payments will be centralized via the private insurance, but then you will have the problem with the waiting. Because if, for example, in Austria, if you want to have not an emergent operation, you have to wait for 3 to 6 months. For example, in Vienna, if you want to get a psychiatrist, not direct payment, but paid by the health insurance fund, you have to wait 2 years to get a slot. If you pay cash, you get the slot tomorrow. So every regulation and every restriction suffocates in a way the business. So this should be done very carefully. And also where we started, in Austria, it's impossible to have an emotional relationship with your physician. This is not possible because the physicians do not allow this. They are putting the barrier, and irrespective of what you do, the barrier is there and you cannot get an emotional contact. And also, there is no chance like in Bulgaria that you pick up the phone, call the doctor, and in 3 hours you can visit his office. That's in Austria not possible.
Yeah, I've noticed that with my grandparents. They do have an emotional connection with their physicians. They talk, they have a friendship almost.
Yes, that's typical for Bulgaria, and in a way, this was a positive part of our healthcare system, that every physician was involved in the family life of his patients, and then you help better and easier.
But I feel like it's a major, I don't know, it's tough on the physician. It's too much emotional connection and emotional stress. And I feel like it just wears you out.
No, this is typical for high turnover physicians who are not settled down. But if you are, for example, the physician of 10% of Veliko Trnovo, then you have to be emotionally related with them in order to know the illnesses of your patients. Well, if you are working in a high turnover clinic in Sofia, you get patients you never know, and you don't see anymore in your life. I have been met several times in Sofia, and somebody says, "Oh, Dr. Georgiev, this boy has been delivered by you." I don't recall them, but that's another job. That's a job in a high turnover clinic. But if you are in a smaller village or town where you have the same patients, you have to be emotionally related with them. There is no other way. And it's better also for your job if you know them.
Because you feel like you'll much easier succeed with them and have a much better success rate treating the patients.
Yes, because the empathy is important, and this is building of trust. If the patient trusts to their doctor, they never look at Google for alternative opportunities.
I see.
What things have you seen in Austria, and when you come back to Bulgaria, are kind of like a cultural shock? That could be from the business side, personal side, entertainment side, anything that you feel is lacking Bulgaria that has to change?
Well, the first shock is on the airport. When you land in Sofia, you see a dirty airport, very old-fashioned one, with long queues waiting on a passport control. The taxis, which are unfriendly, they don't pick up your suitcase, and so on. That's the first shock. And there is actually the border between Europe and Bulgaria, the airport. Because after that, for example, in Austria, all shops are closed on Sunday. You cannot buy anything. While in Bulgaria, they are offered 24/7, and on Sunday, you have 12 or 14 hours working for every shop. I'm living in the center of Sofia, and close to my apartment, we have 3 or 4 shops which are working on Sunday. So you can buy everything, even clothes if you want. But I speak about food, drinks, vegetables, fruits. In Austria, that's not possible. Sunday, they are closed, definitely. You can find an open shop somewhere close to a rail station or to the airport, but that's it. Or in a hospital, but that's it. So that's the difference, which I think in Bulgaria makes our life much more easier. The shops who are open daily. What would the other, of course, the other cultural shock is the conditions of the street where you walk, because for pedestrians, walking in Sofia is from time to time a challenge. While in Austria, this is not questionable. The conditions of the streets.
And then is there something that, since you've been in Austria, that you miss from Bulgaria that you can't find in Austria? I know a lot of Bulgarians that are abroad might have a similar feeling as you.
Well, you cannot find in Austria good friends. You cannot find in Austria good tomatoes, although they are trying to catch up. What else? Well, Europe is pretty much coming together in a way. So something which is really life-changing besides friendships and relatives, I cannot say that we are missing in Austria. Food is good. You can find the traditional Austrian food is not healthy, but it's tasty. But in a close vicinity to our apartment in Vienna, we have Korea, Chinese, Vietnam, Greece, Lebanese, Italian, of course, cuisines, which you can compensate. You cannot eat only schnitzel. That's not healthy.
Yeah.
But you can compensate with other cuisines which are much more healthy and also tasty. In terms of shopping, yes, what we miss in Bulgaria also, and what is a big problem in Bulgaria, is the correct attitude of the major energy providers in Austria. Because in Austria, to be cheated by an energy provider is almost impossible. There are extremely powerful consumer protection organizations, and also in banking. There are huge consumer protecting organizations who are protecting the customers from frauds. And this is not functioning in Bulgaria. You can be cheated by a bank, you can be cheated by a Toplificația Sofia, by the heat provider in Sofia, by the electricity provider, by the water provider. The quality of water in Austria is really great, amazing, while in Bulgaria you have places, especially on the Black Sea, where you should not drink the tap water. That's also a difference which makes sense to be discussed.
And then the last thing is, why do you think it's more difficult to form friendships outside of Bulgaria? Do you think it's because of our culture and how we were raised and the connection we have with our people?
There are several. This is a very hot discussed topic in our family, because there are several hurdles. The first hurdle are the Austrians by themselves. They don't form friendships even with Germans, although they speak the same language. In a way, Germans are hated in Austria like Bulgarians. They are not welcome. So no foreigner is welcome in Austria. And that's the first. The second step would be, if you don't know the language. We speak the language very good, but there are a lot of Bulgarians who don't speak the language, although they are for a long time here. So that's a hurdle, because Austrians do not speak other languages with pleasure, especially if they are in social contacts. For business, they can speak German, English or French, no, but English. And a lot of them are trying to learn Russian. And the third very important obstacle is the mentality, because we have invited several times families at our home. They are staying until 11, 12 or 1 o'clock, and they say, it was very nice, we will come again. But nobody invites us. So in the way, when there is a time that they invite us, after the second or the third visit, they invite us in a restaurant. And we have been thinking why this is so. And at the end, we understood because the majority of them have lower living standard, and they are ashamed that the Bulgarian family has a better living standard than them. So in order not to show, not to be in a way blamed by their living conditions, they invite us in a restaurant.
Or they just don't invite you at all.
Yes, but that's the reality. That's the reality.
Yeah. I see. But yeah, Dimitar, I know you mentioned that you had 45 minutes today, and we're nearing that time, and I don't want to hold you up. And
we can make another meeting if you want. Once again, we can continue. This topic is very interesting for me, and especially I would speak about opportunities which Bulgaria is giving for young people now. Because I have had several talks with young people who came back to Bulgaria for various reasons, and we can schedule another call. But unfortunately, today I am really restricted to 45 minutes.
Yep.
But
we'll do a second part
about this
talk
again,
about youth development.
I think in terms of work-life balance, coming back to roots, understanding better the philosophy of life, Bulgaria is much more easy for young people than staying not miserable but poor conditions in other countries in Europe. I have met a lot of young scientists who are doing their postdoc or PhD or something in Europe, and they are living really with below the standard, because they get small scholarships, and their parents cannot afford to send them money. But why do you do this? You can do science and business in Bulgaria as well. Of course, you will not be able to publish in higher ranking journals, but you will be with your roots. You will speak your language. You will have your friends. You will have your family who will support you. And even in terms of marriage, because I have seen the plague of Austria is that Austrians do not have children. They don't want children because they are egoists. They are so much focused on their own ego that they don't get children. And this is why they import immigrants to work, because there is nobody to work here.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll definitely have a second part. I think the second part we more focused on youth in Bulgaria and then youth abroad and the youth going abroad and why they go abroad and why they should come back.
Exactly. Because I have a good example, our nephew who studied economics in Austria and made a his magister degree in Austria. So he was 8 years here. After the school, he came back to Bulgaria, got an important position. Now he's coming back to Austria, but he's still based in Bulgaria. So he will be based in Bulgaria, but try to use his network and the funding opportunities of Austria, which are not comparable to Bulgaria. So Europe now has the advantage of being extremely open. Yes, there are problems with flying, but for this you have the digital tools. And if you come to Bulgaria and put your foot there after being educated in England, in Germany, Sweden, or in Austria, then you can use your network in the countries and do business in Bulgaria and do good for you and for your home country, enjoying the privileges of being European.
I agree with you 100%. I think that's definitely the route that many people should be taking. Many Bulgarians abroad should be taking.
Exactly.
Well, Dimitar, I really thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure getting to understand you and having you on our call. And we thank you so much for doing this for us and taking the time out of your busy day to give something to us and to the Bulgarian community that we're going to show this to.
Exactly. So send me a slot, 2-3 slots for our next meeting. And I will take one and we will continue speaking about the opportunities for young people in Bulgaria.
Perfect.
Is this okay for you?
Yeah,
thank you, guys.
For us.
Have a nice day and have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.